I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Guys, Lenny's back.
Praise the Lord.
Thank God, man. Literally thank God. I needed him so bad. I love Lenny.
But we kind of knew it's been coming, right? They've been teasing it the whole
finally,
season.
My gosh,
Yes.
guys, we just got done watching the 7th episode of The New Pope. New Pope Season 2, Episode 7. I'm your host, Jessie Zahner, and with me is my host. You know him as Al Gragg.
Hey,
Say
everybody.
what's up.
Your boy Al just here just to talk some New Pope with my girl Jess and Resurrection.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So let's just get right into it because this episode I'm so pumped about it because from the very beginning, you see nothing except a beach, and then you see somebody coming up, and it's Lenny, right?
Right.
Everybody knows it's Lenny. He's coming, and I'm like, is this a dream again?
And they've been teasing that because I saw that clip online.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they teased it in another one of the intros before, but yeah. But this is the full introduce, the girls in the background
Yes.
and lifting up their leg. Oh, that was crazy.
So pumped because they cut away from the nuns with the techno music or house music or whatever it is, dancing, and now we're back to kind of the old young Pope intro where Lenny's walking with the song.
Yeah.
What's the song?
All Along the Watchtower.
All Along the Watchtower.
Yeah.
I love that song.
Yeah.
And he's walking, but he's just in underwear on the beach, and
his
there's all
Speedos.
these girls around watching him. So he's not in the Vatican in his Pope gear, walking down the hall. He does the same walk.
Same walk,
same
expression.
wink.
The only thing he's missing is the little cherry Coke, but gives the same wink.
Yes, the cherry Coke. Oh my God, yes. So I'm so happy. I was so pumped to see that intro. I love Lenny. Just what are your thoughts about Lenny coming back and everything that's going on with him and the doctor?
I mean, I wish I could say that we were surprised because we're not. Even whether you cheated and looked at the promos, Lenny's still in the promotional image in the one sheet, so you knew he was coming back, and it's just a matter of when. But I honestly don't know how much longer I could take it, just with all the corruption and the debauchery and the toxicity. Where in which it's always been present too,
right?
In the previous season, but I was just how low can we go before at least Lenny can come back and set things right? And not to get ahead of myself, but I still believe this is a spiritual show, and it's not just Lenny setting things right; it's God working through Lenny to set things right.
Right, that's what it feels like, right? Yeah. So you're glad Lenny's back?
Glad, who wouldn't be?
I know.
It just brings so much color to it.
Yeah, if this is a real life situation, I'd be in Venice with the red shirt hoodie girl and
You would be
Esther.
out of the
Yeah.
beehive.
Oh hell yes.
Jess, I can see you out there with the hoodie.
Yes. So I'm so excited he's back, and he goes and stays with the doctor, and we find he knows everything, right? He knows exactly what happened between the doctor and his wife and the son, and he's just there being babysitter Pope Pius, babysitter Lenny.
And you know why he knows everything? Because he was astro projecting his soul, throughout the entire season amidst all these other
exactly. That's so
all
true,
these other
right? So
goings
he knows
on.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So his spirit was keeping tabs on everybody.
Yeah, so he's, babysitting, and they're going out, and he's praying for the son, make him a man. He keeps saying.
I love that.
Yeah. What did you think? What did you take that as meaning?
I loved it because it's a little less literal than saying, rise, come back to life and walk among us.
Right.
Make him a man implied, while it could imply that, it implied, we just want to see growth in him, elevation to the next step of what he's meant for, as a person, as a human being. And I think we saw that with, first with the tear. I mean, I would have been happy with that. To me, I was like, yo, that's a sign of a miracle right there.
Right, same.
But when he raises his hand, I interpret that as kind of giving up the ghost, as they say, before he dies. But, that was an even more stronger symbolic gesture. Right. And I guess his full maturity is going to be with God.
So you were just taking it as, so make him a man means, for me, I was just I I expected him to pass away because
Okay.
I was thinking
You did.
Yeah, well, first I was like, oh my God, is he gonna like suffocate him while they're gone? Like, because he wants him to go to heaven because he's just suffering here on earth. So when he said to make him a man, I was kind of confused. I was like, I don't know what's going on. And I didn't know if he wanted him to come back or if he wanted to go to heaven.
I agree with that too, because there was so obviously so many parallels with Lenny, you know, and then thinking he's a healer and he's like Jesus, and Jesus in the Bible, even when he healed people, sometimes he would say, you know, you're healed, touch them, and they'd be healed instantly. Sometimes he'd say, okay, I want you to, if you're blind, I want you to go down, you know, to the Sea of Galilee and wash your eyes 3 times and come back, and then they'd be healed. And other people, he touched them and he said, you can see. And they're like, well, I can't really see. I'm only partially blind. He's like, okay, try this. And he's like, now I can see. And, you know, I think all that's a process of faith. And I think it depends. I think it's God determines that for each person, which was, I don't know, my theory about Lenny, why he didn't just literally say, get up and rise. Because, and ultimately, I guess, what is it when we all become a man or a woman or come into our fullness? I would think that ultimately that'd be going to God.
Right. So that's so interesting that you bring up all these points, because I think we see later in the episode, I'm kind of skipping way far ahead, but at the end of the episode, we finally see John Brannox, Pope John Paul III. And he's like, I guess he's like asking for forgiveness or like confessing his sins to Guitterez. I love Guitterez.
Yeah.
But we see like such a difference between Pope Pius and John Brannox, especially at the end. Like you see that throughout the episode, you're like, oh, like relieved Lenny's back and like he's doing the right thing. And like you just see it through everything. Like first he forgets he's the Pope, which is hilarious. I love that. He's like, oh yeah, I'm the Pope. But like he just keeps saying like, you know, like I'm not a saint. I don't perform miracles. Like he
almost to the point where, and again, it goes back to these stories taken from Sunday school, where Jesus would almost try to talk the person out of it who came to him. I remember there's one guy who had said, you know, or I don't know if it's a woman, Lord, come and, you know, heal my son. He is sick at the house, so I know you can heal him. And he was like, well, who are you? And why should I heal you? And, you know, and she was like, no, you don't even have to come to my house. Just say the word. And he was like, oh, okay. Well, no, be it done unto you because of your faith. Yeah, he's healed. Bam.
Yeah.
So I look at it a lot like that, and I don't know. Just also the fact that Pope Brannox, we love him because he's so human and so fragile. But that kind of relates to that, you know, that part in us all. But just to see him there, yes, when you juxtapose him with Lenny, the insecure, and now we feel, you know, now we're realizing it's confirmed, you know, that he's detoxing off of drugs.
Right.
And he's obviously a very broken soul. And when you compare him to Lenny, who's just almost seems to be like fully, I guess, a self-fulfilled or spiritually fulfilled person in the moment, confident. But I think I'm happy for Brannox that he got all this stuff off his chest, so now he can start getting toward redemption. Right.
They're so different. So Lenny is basically, he's performed these miracles and people are considering him a saint, but he's saying, no, I'm not doing that. I didn't perform these miracles.
Which is the same thing Jesus would say.
Right. But then on the other hand, John Brannox is saying, he's confessing to Guitterez and he says, oh, did you like this book that I wrote about my thoughts? And he's like, yeah, it was a masterpiece. He's like, yeah, it was a masterpiece, but I didn't write it. My brother wrote it, but he died. So I published it as my own. So it's funny because like Lenny's won't take credit for the things that he did or the miracles that he performed. And then on the other hand, like we see John Brannox, he's like taking credit for things that he doesn't even do. He even says that about being like a thespian. He's like, I'm not established one. But like, it's just such a contrast. And then also like Lenny's really strong. And like now we're seeing Pope John Paul III break down.
Yes, but I also, again, I think this is all good. Like I think it was all like their fate toward God improving them, because I think now that Brannox has cleansed his soul, I think he can finally be an honest person to other people and not carry around those lies. You know what I mean? Because of course he's going to feel like a fraud if you've committed all these acts of fraud. And not that we all haven't, but I think there's something said when confession is good to the soul. You got to find somebody like to tell these things to. And if I put myself in his brother's head, his brother may have, if he was still alive or was still had some type of opinion about it, he would probably be hurt. But more than anything else, he would just be like, hey, well, you know, go on and run with it. I'm not here to enjoy it. I don't know. You know, I'm trying to think like big picture.
Yeah. So that's, you know, basically what happens with Pope Pius, Lenny. He comes back and, he's spending a lot of time with the doctor. So that's basically what we see out of him. We don't see much out of Brannix except the end with his confessions to Guitterez. But then we do see Ester and the red hoodie girl. They're in Venice. They're outside the hospital.
They're quite a squad.
Okay, so you blew my mind at the beginning before we started just now going on air because you were talking about the red hoodie girl. So what is the deal with the red hoodie girl?
I mean, I just remember there were other people, with the Lenny T-shirts, but obviously from the very first episode, she had the red hoodie with this picture, and plus she's so striking, what I mean? So it's clear that she was the leader of the movement, and yes, I was like, why do they keep focusing on this woman?
Yeah.
And it made sense. Like, by the time Lenny goes back with the doctor and you see who is this beautiful, striking woman? And I see that she's been in it since the very first episode. And I was like, that does kind of look like her. And it was her when I Googled it.
So does she come up as both? So she is Eva, the wife.
Okay, see, I didn't know Eva was her name. There, you're up on me. I just knew her as the girl who was like head of the movement, as the ex-model, and who had this tragic son.
But so she's the doctor's wife.
Yes, that's her. That's her.
Oh my! That blew my mind because I did not know that. Like they did not say that anywhere.
They didn't say it anywhere. I mean, but I love that because she almost could have been like some young hipster chick. You know what I mean? And then when you see her, she has this big sophisticated lifestyle, and obviously, she's still like relatively young, but it was just very moving, and even their love story, which is a whole other thing, that was very compelling.
Yeah, with the doctor. Yeah, so I was curious to see, like, I guess to know more about her and the doctor, because at the end we also see them praying, I guess. Well, like he said he's going to perform a miracle. Or
Who did?
Lenny.
Okay.
Said he was, at the end, he's like, come to the ballroom and before I leave because I want to say goodbye and I want to show you a miracle. And then they were praying. So I'm like, what's happening? Well, then their son was going up to heaven. I don't know if that's what he was talking about.
Right. Yeah, it's and that's what I love about Voiello. He's so ambiguous with it.
Right.
I was like, also it could be for me. I can interpret it as a miracle that that John Brannix was finally getting all of this off his chest. He was going through I guess what do you call it? A transfiguration, some type of transformation in and of itself. Everybody was. It was a terrorist attack.
Right. Well, that's what I wanted to bring up. The one other thing that I forgot to mention about Brannix is that his dog was killed and like put on the table in his house, I guess, or wherever he lives in the Vatican.
And we're assuming it was in the terrorist attack?
That's what I'm assuming. Because right before they showed the terrorist attack, you see a dog running through St. Peter's
Yeah, I remember.
Basilica Cathedral. And then the terrorist attack happened on at the Vatican, and then you see that the Vatican, the St. Peter's Basilica all like torn up, and then the dog's dead.
Right.
And so that's kind of why he's also spiraling.
And he'd been Brannix had been depressed for like weeks and locked in his room and
there's
detoxing and God knows
so
what.
much going on. The majority of it was about Lenny, right, and the doctor. But there's all these other side stories going on. Like Faisal got kicked out of the Vatican.
I know, man. What the heck?
And Spoleto was there, and
who was the guy with Spoleto? What's his name?
That's the guy with the glasses. He's around all the time. He's the guy. Yeah, he's the guy that was with the nuns. You know what I mean? With the nuns, and they wanted to talk to Voiello, but he wouldn't let them talk to him. So he was there, and he was like saying to Spoleto, like, "Do you have no feelings? Do you have no emotions?"
And it's just because you lust after me.
Yeah. So we see that very short moment, and then it's so funny because when the terrorist attack thing started happening, they were like, "Oh, there were two guys that were around the Vatican. It was this and that. Like that was one was Egyptian and one was Syrian."
And they cut to Faisal, right?
Right, and he was going to jail. And as soon as they said that, I was like, "Oh, they're going to think
use him
it's
as
Faisal.
A scapegoat? Yeah,
they're going to think it's Faisal." But I think he's going to get in trouble because they're going to find out, "Oh, we just kicked this guy out of the Vatican, and now there's a terrorist attack." It's definitely him.
He's like the perfect fall guy. But I hope not. Hopefully
I
not.
hope not. So that was like a really short scene, and then we get a short scene with that Bauer guy.
Yeah.
That's basically the guy that killed Pope Francis.
Right.
And he gets a text message, and then like you don't see him for a while, and then you see him again, and he's like, "No one." Was it him that was like, "Nobody tell them that Pius is back until I tell them"? Like, What is he, like the president of like?
He's pretty much like the power broker. He's like the
how,
Don
though?
Corleone pulling the strings because he's the fixer. So
but like he's Voiello's boy, and Voiello's not there anymore. Now Voiello's a gardener with Don Mimmo.
Right, I know. But,
so who's he telling? Oh, do you think he's telling Sofia? Maybe
I don't know, possibly, but I do know that he struck me as the guy who was always going to be like the power behind the power.
Yeah,
you know, and he was.
Oh, so do you think he's like Spalletta? Guy now?
Yeah, I think he's possibly above him if Spalletta doesn't end up answering to him. And let's think about all this too, because obviously, you know, he's eating his mushrooms. He's the first one that gets notified, so he has all the inside intel. Who knows? Somebody tipped him off that the nun saw Lenny, you know, stir to life, and so he's the first one to know. And then he's like, okay, keep me posted. Don't tell anybody else, you know, but the nun of the doctor. Nobody else knows. So he's been in kind of. Not in control, but he's been he's been tracking everything, so he's on top of it.
Right.
As long as he knows where Lenny's moves are, he's like, okay, he can't control when Lenny comes back, but at least he knows, okay, he's not back yet, and he'll be the first to know when he does come back.
But what do you think his like motive for all this is? Because as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh no, is he going to kill Lenny or is he going to kill John Brannix?
Right.
But like, I don't know, because I don't know whose side he's on. Like, who's he siding with?
He's just on his own side. He's just for power. He's for money. That's why him and I guess was it Spalletto were what do you call it? Like washing the cash or the church funds, you know. But yeah, Albert, you know, he's not a nice guy. Honestly, I don't want them to make him like he's Voiello and somehow give him some type of redemptive quality why he's been doing all these mafioso moves. But you know, more than anything else, he just represents power and corruption, I think.
Okay, yeah, I hope we find out what he's up to. So that's really about it for this episode. We just know Lenny's back, and there's like a bunch of little side stories with Ester, with Faisal, with Bauer, with just everybody. And I guess we'll find out more next episode. But until next episode, we have to hear about the most scandalous Pope.
You want to hear about the most?
Yes.
You want to hear about the most scandalous Pope?
We do, Al.
They are so scandalous. Are you ready? Here we go. We do this every week, ladies and gentlemen. And thanks for rocking with us. And shout out to our boy Jonathan up in the booth. He's going to help us cue this up. We're going to talk about Pope Benedict IX. And he was actually labeled a demon from hell.
Oh my gosh.
He had the most gnarly, violent reputation from all the saints to the public and to the media. The Pope held the position 3 different times. It was kind of like a really bad cold that the church couldn't get rid of. His first spell as Pope ended with him fleeing to Rome after citizens' rebellion erupted over his violent behavior. He then came back into power for a second shift, but sold the papacy to his godfather, who became Pope. But Benedict was not finished. He returned to Rome years later, reclaimed the throne, and then lost it again after German armies finally chased him out of Rome for good. So he was the type of Pope that wouldn't leave the papacy unless you saw like his fingernails and his claw marks on it. And I'm sure, I think he's probably responsible for a lot of deaths. That's what this whole season's teaching us. A lot of hits that are going on.
Like, if you guys are watching this show, you should really enjoy it. Because, like, all I'm thinking right now is, like, if, like, you're religious and, like, you're, like, thinking, man, I'm a sinner, I'm going to hell, right?
Look at
just
these
think,
guys,
like, the Pope. Like, I'm, like, a better human being than the Pope. Like, you feel good about yourself, right? So you leave this show just feeling great. So
hey, man. You know,
thanks for sharing these with us, Al.
Oh, man, I loved it anytime.
Yes. So our next and last segment before we go tonight is predictions.
Okay, predictions. I don't like to pop my collar.
Yeah.
Both of us have been saying that Lenny is coming back, but I believe I predicted, cha-ching, that there was going to be a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
I think I said that last week.
Yeah.
Coming up.
You're right.
On to moving forward. Okay, this is a very interesting line where Sofia goes and talks to Voiello in the garden. She's talking, obviously, she's worried about the papacy, the church, because John Brannix is so weak. And, you know, And Voiello, true to his nature, he's like, but we already knew he was fragile.
Right.
You know, we expect him, because he's all depressed and not coming out. And he says, you must learn to ride the weakness. So I'm trying to figure what that out is. Tell me out there, because I hear that saying a lot when you're talking about riding something that's a negative or defective behavior. So I guess that means somehow making it into a positive, adjusting, and yeah, okay, so yeah, I think they're going to make the best of it.
What weakness are they going to ride though?
His frailty, something. I don't know. They're going to capitalize on it. It's like taking somebody's weakness and turning into a strength, like in judo, I guess. Like if somebody's lunging at you, then you use that momentum to throw them over your knee because they went too far. But I think he was meant, in a sense, to be that interim pope. Regardless of all the things and the frauds he was guilty with. It wasn't like the public knew. It was his own private journey, and I think in God's mind, we needed to have that type of papacy for a while.
So if they do ride the weakness, do you think he's going to come back stronger? Like he's going to try to defend himself and then get some type of power in his head and then not want to step down from being a pope? Or do you think he's just going to cave into all of his weaknesses and just let Lenny take over?
Yeah, I wouldn't even see it as caving into his, I mean, it's one way to say it, but I don't see it as caving into his weaknesses. I think because he said from the jump, even when they were voting him for Pope, he voted for Lenny.
Yeah.
So I think they can kind of build on that.
Right.
Well, sir, you knew that you always wanted Lenny too, and so we can build on that goodwill. I think he'll be relieved, to get out of that job.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen next week because I think Lenny's going to go back to Rome finally, obviously, because that's what he's doing at the end of this episode. And it's going to stir everything up. Because at the end, we see Guitterez taking the call as he's also listening, in the middle of listening to the Pope, he takes a call and he's like, oh my gosh, the Pope's back. Is that a sign? That's a sign. He's telling him all of his weaknesses, all of his sins.
That's a miracle right there. It's
and now
everything.
he's like, oh, you don't even have to worry about being a bad human and this and that. Because guess what? Lenny's back.
That's like relief, man. Burn shoulder off my back, man.
So I don't know what's going to happen because my question is this. This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking they're going to come back, and I don't know how it works. Does Lenny just take over? Do they have to have another vote?
Right.
The previews show Lenny holding up his outfit, but then he's in all black. So then I'm like, oh no, is he in all black because he's going to see the Pope and he's not going to become the Pope?
Right.
Do they have to do another vote? And they all vote for Brannix because Lenny is a saint, and Esther said, a saint is a big problem in the Vatican.
There you go.
And
You'd think they'd be dying to have Lenny back, but Lenny's almost too good. He shows them all up.
But then is Bauer going to come and kill Lenny?
I hadn't thought about that. That's a good prediction.
Because also we talked about before, but did Bauer slip Lenny something like he did Pope Francis, and that's why Lenny got sick, had a heart attack, and ended up in a coma?
Possibly, but I'd like to believe that because Lenny is the one character I feel like we see God move the most through, and we know Lenny's complicated.
For sure.
But I feel like even in spite of that, he has these Jesus-like qualities that if you try to kill him, he'll just rise again. He'll just be resurrected, and whatever it will happen will work out to the benefit of the church or Catholicism or their community. So I almost think that whether he tries to kill him or not, I think it doesn't even almost matter as far as where Lenny's concerned, because Lenny's just stuck in the middle of God's will.
Right. So I'm so excited to see what happens next episode.
I can't believe
we got 2 episodes left, guys. 2 episodes left. And I can't wait to see what happens. But until then, Al, tell everybody where they can find you.
Hey everybody, it's your boy Al Gragg. You can find me on Instagram at ALG_Jamaica House Film. Reach out to me, holler, and leave some YouTube comments, too. We love you guys out there.
Yes, and I'm Jessie Zahner. You can find me all over social media at Athletic. We'll see you guys next week.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.